let's take a look at what we'd like to be able to do now is that we have way too much garbage in here. I'd like to be able to remove some of this. All right. So to do that, we'll need to click on this delete button. Now notice that clicking on that delete button is slightly different, right? Because clicking on the create, there's only one create button, whereas clicking on this delete is a little bit it's a little more complicated because clicking on this one, you want to remove this one, right? So somehow this delete needs to be aware of this particular row, right? Of that particular ID, of that particular element that we want to remove, right? Also, the server doesn't have any support for delete. It knows about a post, it knows about a get, but it doesn't know anything about a delete. So we need to build both sides, right? The client side and the server side, all right? All right, so let's take a look at that. First, let's see if we can somehow grab a hold of this delete button, all right? So to do that, let's see, where do we render that? So we render that probably in the controller. In the controller, we cloned it. Right, there it is, right? We cloned the template and we added the .html, right? We could also perhaps add a click event on that clone we just added, right? So we could say .click, and this will be something like delete user, right? So that if you click on it, the delete user function will be invoked, right? So this will be the event handler function delete user event. So we can do console.log the event that we get, right? So jQuery, when it detects a click, it will call our delete user and it will pass us as argument. It will pass us the original event that was generated when the click event occurred, right? It'll include a timestamp. The original DOM elements that was a part of the event, right? So we could determine who generated this event. So let's take a look at that. If we refresh and look at the console and we click on delete, it didn't work. Wait, what's going on? Source. Do we have delete? We do. Find HTML user clone. Dot find blah 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 HTML delete user. Probably we want to perhaps do it on the clone itself. Oh, okay, probably it's doing it on the username. Right, probably it's doing it on the username. So let's do clone, clone dot click. Let's see. Still, okay, there we go. Right, notice that if I click on this one and we open this is the event that was generated. Notice if I hover over the current target, see that the current target? It highlights that's the DOM element. That is the actual DOM element that was clicked on. See, it says TR, right? That's the table row that was clicked on, and there it is. But there's no way for us to distinguish it from any other TR. There's no distinguishing element. Yes? Yeah, so if you had two buttons, you would have to assign a .click to either one, right? And then call an event handler that wants to handle it, right? So for instance, we might have, for instance, another button, right, in the template. Say in the template you also had not only a delete, but maybe you also had maybe like an edit button. So this would be like an edit button, right? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. We are associating the delete on the row, right? We really want to associate it on the button, right? So that's why it was coming back as TR. We really want the button, right? So let's do that. Yes, good catch. Let's do that. So in the controller, we don't really want to associate it on the click on the row. We really want to do is we want to find the delete button under there, and so we need to add a class somehow here that allows us to distinguish, to grab onto that row that we just cloned, right, and grab the button in that row. So let's do that. So let's find the delete, right? Here is find me the element whose class is delete in the clone, which is a clone of the table row, right? So basically, you know, this is a clone. It's going to look just like that. Once I have the clone, find me the element whose class is delete, which is the button. Yes, right? And what do I want to do? I want to associate a delete user event handler, and I could do the same thing with edit, right? The other button, right? The edit button has an edit class, and I want to maybe edit user, something like that. All right. So let's have two event handlers, one for each event type. Right. So this will print out a delete user, whereas this will print out edit user. Okay. So let's try that. Here's the delete and the edit. Okay, here's the, what? Source, this load, find, close. I'm sorry? Oh, the first one is static, thank you. Yes. Oh, there it is. It is working. Okay, so this is edit user, delete. Edit and delete. See that? So now we can distinguish which one you're clicking, right? But I don't know which user does this belong to. So somehow we need to add some distinguishing factor with that button. So for instance, what we could do is add an attribute somehow that uniquely distinguishes this user. So one of the things we could do is that as we generate the user, we can add some maybe like the ID of the user added as an attribute dynamically, right? So let's do that. We can say once we clone it, we can add to the clone. We can add an attribute on the clone, an attribute, say an ID attribute, right? And give it the value of the user.id. Okay, so if we refresh. And we inspect it. Here's a table row. Notice that all the table rows now have a distinct IDs. See that? 12, 22, 32, and so on and so forth. Yes? So now we have the button that we clicked, and we have the row where the button is. Where's the ID? The ID is actually where? Is in the table row where the button is in, right? Somehow we have to navigate up to the table row to find the ID, right? So it's a little kludgy here. Let's see. So now I have the event. I can grab the button itself, var the button, so the delete button. We can grab it. It's event.currentTarget. Right, so that's the delete button. That's the raw DOM element. I don't want to deal with raw DOM element. I want to treat it, give it some of jQuery's magic, right, so that I can much easier navigate and interact with the DOM. Right, so instead of just working with the raw DOM element, I'm going to convert it into a jQuery DOM element, right, so that I can much more easily manipulate the DOM. Right, I don't want to deal with any of the low-level stuff. All right, so now that I have the delete button, I could do things such as var the parent. I can grab the delete button and tell me, you know, who's your parent? Who's your parent DOM element, right? Well, who is it? Let's see. If we look at the clone, let's see. Here is the button. The parent is a th. See that? Right? I would need to navigate to my parent and my parent again. See that? Right? And so I can say .parent, and let's for now just print out who the parent is. Let's see who it is. Parent. Why am I navigating to the table row? Because it's in the table row that I have the ID. Right? I could have done what else? I could have added the ID to the button. Right? I could have done that, but I have two buttons. I would have two buttons with the same ID. Right? Which is not kosher. I mean, the browser understands, or it won't complain, right? But it's not really. And this gives us a chance to play around with parent, right? With more jQuery magic. All right, so let's do this. Let's do the console. Let's click on the delete. Notice that it didn't find anybody. Wait, what? So here's the length. So here's the delete button. Parent. Am I spelling this correctly? Log event, delete user. It says that it didn't. Oh, th. Oh, there it is. Th. Okay, so it found the th where the button is embedded. But I really need the other parents, right? So I can say parent, right? And so we do console and we click on this. It's tr. There we go. We got the tr, right? So now we have the row, and notice it's tr hash 2. So we have the ID right there. So we could right here say dot attribute the ID attribute, right? And that gives me the ID. That is the user ID. Now I have the user ID, and I can just print out the user ID. No, not that one. Delete notice 2, 12, 22. Right, now that I have the ID, I can actually delete the user whose primary key is that user ID. Make sense? All right, so let's do that. Probably you might want to perhaps create a function that does this for you, so that you don't have to repeat this again in the edit user. The edit user needs to do the same thing, right? Also, this to make it just a little bit easier to read, is this can be split into separate lines. And so the next thing would be that we want to not console. Let's remove all these consoles. We're going to use user service dot delete user, which we don't have. We're going to pass the user ID, right? So let's implement that part next. Right? We're going to pass in the delete user.